What's up, guys? It's Preach. I'm back again. And what time is it? What time? It's bear time, baby. We are going in on our Feral Druid bear. We're going to take a look at a heroic run as normal. We're going to do the full Monty. Remember to subscribe, guys. I just want to let you know as well, the next live web stream with me and Ghost is going to be on Saturday, a week on Saturday. Please check it out. It's going to be at 9 p.m. GMT, 10 p.m. CEST. It's going to be really good, guys. Please tune in, join in the chat, throw some questions our way. We'll answer everything. So, what we're looking at, Feral Druid, big tubby bear, one of the funnest classes you can play as a tank. Not particularly great tank, I don't think so, in comparison to our block tanks that are out there. We've covered them in previous videos, but still very decent and relatively simple to play, I'd say. There's not a lot for you to do on your Feral Druid to get out good results. So if you're just getting into tanking, you're a little bit uncertain because, say, a Prot Warrior has a million buttons to play effectively. Same with a Prot Paladin with loads of cooldowns and all sorts of stuff. Get a Feral Druid, really nice. And if you're not happy, you've got Restoration in there. You've also got Feral Cat if you want to do some DPS. And you've also got the Moonkin as well. The Laser Turkey is an option if you're not happy with your tank. But today we're going to play tank. Okay, so what are we looking for? We're looking for leather agility item, guys. As you can see, this guy's got some relatively early gear. He was my original main at the start of Cataclysm, so I've done a lot of tier 11 content and heroics. Got some early server first kills on this guy, so he is relatively geared. I'm going to do a normal heroic on him. I'm not going to do a ZG or a ZA. That just takes far too long and generally have a lot of fail in there. There's a lot of guys in there who don't know what they're doing, and they tend to be a nightmare for me to film for you guys. All I'm doing is demonstrating to you is how to play to get some good effects, so that can be done in a normal heroic. So looking for some leather agility items. Feral Druids have one important stat that other tanks sort of don't really think about, and that is dodge. We don't have block. We don't have parry. What we have got is dodge, and we need dodge all over the place. We are a big, fat, dodging bear. As hypocritical as seen as the size of a bear, we like to dodge. So what do we do with our reforging? Well, we take our leather agility items. We then reforge our worst stat into dodge. So when it comes to hit and expertise, as we said in our Prot Paladin and our Prot Warrior, we don't need hit and expertise as a tank. We just don't need them. Our threat comes from Vengeance and all sorts of other good places. We have a lot of threat modifiers in place anyway for being a bear, so we just don't need hit and expertise. So when it comes to stats like our gloves here, our Storm Rider's grips, we've got haste and hit on those. Get rid of that hit, turn that into some dodge. There are no real dodge agi items out there anymore. It all comes from reforging, okay, guys? So you're going to be reforging to dodge very heavily. When it comes to your gemming, two schools of thoughts on your Feral Druid. One is to gem pure stam. If you look at Sejta, the main tank of Paragon, he gems pure stamina, and he's their main tank of the world first guild at the moment, so you can't argue with that. However, a lot of theory goes into gemming agility as well. For what we're doing in our heroics, considering we get a large health buff anyway, we're going to be gemming agility as well. It's going to give us more crit, more armor, more dodge, all sorts of good stuff, okay? We're going to be gemming pure agility. Our stat order is anything is get as much agility as possible from our gemming, because we can't reforge to agility, so get as much agility as we can through gemming. When it comes to our reforging, what are our other stats? We don't particularly like haste. Haste isn't great for us considering we use maul, which is an instant attack. That's going to be the equivalent of a heroic strike if you were playing a Prot Warrior. So when we've got excess rage, we're going to be bashing out maul just to hit that big weight rage dump, and that is not affected by haste at all. Haste is only going to affect our white swings, which is a relatively poor source of damage. The other one is mastery. What does mastery do for us as a Feral Druid? Every time we do a critical strike, we're going to develop a shield. Okay, this imaginary shield. It was very awkward when it was introduced by Blizzard as a sort of get out of jail free card, I would like to say, because Druids didn't have block. So they gave us a shield whenever we crit. Our mastery buffs that shield. Okay, so it's a little bit weird. Why would a bear develop a force field of sorts? Well, they do. And that's the simple answer to it, is they do. So mastery is our other stat. Crit and haste are relatively weak on both sides. Crit slightly higher, so it gives us a little bit more shields whenever we crit. But we also get crit a lot from talents. So don't worry too much about your haste and crit. They're not great. Get your agi up, then look at mastery. But primarily you want to reforge toward dodge, okay? Looking down, you see we've got as much agi as we can get. Hit again, get rid of the hit. Increase our dodge from the hit. And moving down, it's all the same. If you get to some other gems like this, we need to buff our dodge. And you've got a really awkward gem colour. Stick in a dodge stamina gem. Let me just look for the other one that you'll want. It's in the chest. If you've got this blue one and you're going to pick up a nice big agi set bonus, go with an agi stam gem. Stam is still important, but we get a lot of stam from our talents when we turn into a bear. As long as we can take a couple of hits from the boss, That's enough, and then then go for more avoidance, more agility, and so on and so forth. Okay, really basic gemming for our Feral Druid. As much agi as possible, little bit of stam here and there. Try and pick up some set bonuses if they're worthwhile. You see we got a 10 agi bonus there, so we picked up 20 agi, 30 stamina, and got a 10 agi bonus. Shoulder enchant, the basic tank enchant, 75 stamina, 20 dodge. Go for a 90 stam, 35 dodge on your head. All other enchants are pretty basic for the best you can get. 6 mastery on legs. We can get the stamina agi enchant as tanks. There is the stamina dodge, but we prefer stamina agi as a feral druid. And remember, we have put 30 stamina, minor movement speed on our feral druid. What did we say in all our tank guides, guys? Is getting to the mobs first is the key source of maintaining threat at the very beginning of the fight before we've got our vengeance up, okay guys? If the DPS can get to the mobs before you, that is not cool, that's not gravy, you're not going to be a baller. What you need is to get that enchant on your boots and just get that nice bit of stamina as you're a tank anyway, so it's not a major loss, and get some minor movement speed involved. Trinkets, the trinkets on my druid aren't particularly great. It was from the start of Cataclysm, so they're mainly stamina based. There are better trinkets out there at the moment, some nice agi trinkets, even some DPS trinkets aren't exactly bad for a feral druid as we want a lot of agi. But in this case we've got the dual crafting gem, dual crafting trinket with a nice dodge cooldown, and we've got the symbiotic worm with a nice bit of stamina and a mastery buff if we drop low, so we got the chance of developing a nice big fat shield if we should drop low. We shouldn't do in our heroics, but there's always a chance, isn't there, guys? Everywhere else we're just buffing our agility as much as possible. Really basic stuff, okay? Nothing special about your feral druid. Pick up the rogue items, leather with agility, reforge it into dodge off your worst stat, and that's all we need to do. So we look at our staff there, we had crit and mastery. Mastery is better than crit. Take off some crits, turn that into dodge. Buff your dodge up all the way. Let's have a quick talent scout, shall we? Really easy to spec a feral druid. Nothing special about it at all. The talents speak for themselves. Because the talents are mixed with feral cat DPS, you just got to weigh up which ones are more tank based, which ones are more DPS based, and choose accordingly. So we pick up feral swiftness, so when we're in cat form, we gain a nice movement speed, and we also increase our dodge while in bear form, and dodge is our main stat, so dodge, awesome. Fury. Every time we change into a bear, we're going to generate some rage. Nice before the pull. If you've rage starved, go ahead, stick out of form, and then back into bear. You're going to generate a little bit of range. Infected wounds, just a nice natural slow, the same as all the other tanks carry via their thunderclap or judgment. We get infected wounds whenever we attack a target. We've got a nice big fat chance of infecting them with some. I like the idea of it as we're this attacking bear with our bear claws. That wound's then infected and slows the mob down. I think that's a nice little talent. That I've got to be fair. Fury swipes. When you auto-attack while cat or bear form, you have a 15% chance to cause a fury swipe, dealing 10% weapon damage. This cannot occur more than every 3 seconds. So we just get a free attack from that. Really nice. Free attacks, more threat, happy days. Primal Fury, every 100% chance to gain another 5 rage anytime you get a crit. This is where our agi has buffed us even more. So we're critting, we're getting more rage, more attacks, so it all works together. This is why we're going for agility. Feral Aggression. Because the main thing for us is a bear, because we're going to be a bear form, not a cat. We don't use ferocious bite as a bear. We've got our fairy fire instantly going to put 3 stacks up, so that's our sunder armor. So instead of having to use, say, a prot warrior who has to devastate 3 times, we just stick 1 feral fairy fire on. Done, armor reduced, physical DPS are going to be miles happy. Feral charge. This is our big mobility buff. We need this mobility buff, and feral druids were so annoyed when we didn't have it. Really, we've got feral charge now. We can do it in bear or cat. But now we can move around like a proper tank. We can get to the mobs quickly, and we can start doing some big chain pulls. We took 1 point in Stampede just to give us that nice haste buff, because we usually charge at the beginning of the pull to get to the boss while we're all buffed up. We're going to get that haste buff just to start getting our DPS and our threat working quicker. We take 3 out of 3 thick hide as a bear just to buff our armor even more, because we only have armor and dodge as a bear. That's really all we have. So this is going to buff us up. This is also important because this is the critical strike chance reduction. So this is what we need as a bear, is to not be crit by bosses. We need thick hide. Big 3 out of 3 out of there. We take leader of the pack just to buff all our party with a nice big fat crit buff. Really good. 5%. It's going to be raid wide, party wide. So once we're in there, everyone's got a nice 5% crit. We take brutal impact. Bash, a nice big stun similar to concussion blow, but decreases the cooldown of our skull bash. Skull bash sounds stupid, but skull bash is just our interrupt, okay? Same as every other tank. We as a tank, as we say in every tank guide, guys, just because you're the tank, that does not mean it's the DPS's job to interrupt. Help out the interrupts, because more than likely it's reducing the damage you take, more importantly than them. So you got to be interrupting whenever you can. Survival instincts, this is our shield wall. We have to spec for our shield wall. I'm not happy that we have to spec for shield wall, considering it should just only be usable in bear and cat form. I don't see why that's a problem for healers to have to jump into bear form and shield wall. Maybe it's a PvP thing, but we have to take that into feral tree. Endless carnage, increase the duration of our rate by 6 seconds. That's no good for us. We increase our pulverize by 8 seconds. What's pulverize? We'll talk about it in a second, but it's going to buff our pulverize length. That's good. Natural reaction. Reduces the damage taken while in bear form by 18%. Just a nice big flat damage buff. And increases our dodge by 6%. Really good. And you generate 3 rage every time you dodge while in bear form. So as we increase our dodge and get more avoidance, we start getting more rage, more threat. All works together nicely. Nice bit of synergy there. Rend and tear. Increase the damage done by your maul, which is the main thing we're going to be using. As I said, it's like our heroic strike. By a nice big flat 20%, okay? Really, really nice. So we like our big maul buff there. And that leads us into pulverize. Requires bear form. This is a tank thing. So what is pulverize? Basically, it's something that we can add into our rotation to make it more interesting, because bears had it far too easy. We had 3 buttons to tank, guys. It was really sad, really lonely. This is one of the reasons I gave up on the feral druid, because I just found it too easy. Even with pulverize, I just particularly wasn't interested. So what is pulverize? Whenever we have 3 stacks of lacerate, which is a bleed that we use, we can then pulverize that, and that gives us a 9% critical strike damage bonus to all our abilities for as long as pulverize lasts. And that crit transfers into more damage absorbed via our magical, mystical bear shield, okay, guys? So that's what pulverize is. Once we've got 3 stacks of lacerate up on our boss, we're going to pulverize it. It's going to suck all the lacerates off. We're going to get this 9% crit, and then during the meantime, we're going to reapply our lacerates up for the next pulverize. Just a little bit of an addition to the rotation. Not particularly interesting, I've got to say, but still, it's there for us to use, and it's a nice defensive ability that does some damage as well. Our final talent is Berserk. Really good. When we activate Berserk, we can mangle 3 targets at once, and our mangle has no cooldown. Really good. So if we've got a big AoE pack that's going to be zerged by our DPS, go ahead and berserk the crap out of it. Mangle is our big ability. Try and think of Mangle if you've played other tanks. Mangle is our shield slam. Mangle is our shield of the righteous. All that kind of stuff. It just transfers along the lines. Feral druids, or druids in general, pull a lot of abilities from other classes into one. They're a bit of a mishmash of all sorts of classes as they developed through the game's history. So Berserks give us this ability just to spam Mangle non-stop for as long as Berserk lasts. That's all we need out of the feral tree. We're going to switch over to the resto tree. What did we pick up there? We picked up Heart of the Wild. While you're in bear form, your stamina is increased by 6%. Okay, so we got a nice big health buff while we're in bear form. Natural Shapeshifter makes it cheaper. We need to pick that up in order to get into Master Shapeshifter. What does that give us? In bear form, increases our physical damage by 4%, and we do all physical damage. So that is a giant buff to all our damage. Really, really nice. And the final ability we wanted to pick up in Restoration is Perseverance, reduces all spell damage taken by 6%. A bear's biggest weakness is spell damage, okay? You can sort of relieve it a little bit using the Tol Barad Trinket, which gives, we spoke about that in the prot guide for warriors and paladins, that nice big spell damage reduction. Really good. So we don't have that as a bear. We generally don't use that trinket unless we absolutely have to. So as mastery is not great for us. It's not amazing, but we do pick up Perseverance. So we've got this flat 6% spell damage reduction. All right, guys. Really simple stuff. That's all you need to take. It's a pretty standard build. Going into glyphs. Glyph of Berserk. So when we do pop our Berserk, we get an extra 10 seconds of Berserking. So 10 seconds of extra Mangles is a lot of extra 3 times Mangle, isn't it? Really good. Glyph of Mangle. Increase the damage by a flat 10%. Mangle is our big hard-hitting ability, so we get that, and plus the graphic looks cool. Glyph of Lacerate, we're going to be lacerating in between. All we're basically doing as a bear is if we're single targeting, we're mangling and mauling, and in between waiting for Mangle to come back off cooldown, we're going to be lacerating in between. So, what else do we pick up? Glyph of Frenzied Rejuve. While Frenzied Regeneration is active, healing effects on you are 30% more powerful, but no longer causes your Frenzied Rejuve to convert rage into health. This was a rather bizarre cooldown that we used to have, where if we pop Frenzied Rejuveration, it used to suck all our rage out of us and convert it to a heal, which is poor for a tank. We don't want to sit there with no rage, so we can't do any ability. So we sort of gave up doing threat in order to get some healing. So it's a waste of time. So it's now Frenzied Rejuve, which also gives us a big health buff, similar to Last Stand for a warrior.